Hey guys, here today talking to you about furthering our understanding of this idea of a growth mindset and of how we're going to set intelligence, how we're going to set goals, and how we're going to use those things to learn. So for today, we've got some previous objectives that I want to go over, and then some new objectives that we're going to start discussing. So what we've already talked about was understanding the difference between growth and fixed mindset. Understanding sort of the conditions that it takes for human beings to learn optimally. And then three, we've started to look at this idea of metacognition. Um, Now, all these things are very, very positive and very great. But what we're going to look at today is kind of the other side of things that I think is really important. It's about learning how to regulate our automatic thoughts, those automatic negative emotions that every human being experiences, and they're just kind of a part of life and definitely a part of school. That we face. We face challenge, we face frustration, we face things coming at us from outside of the school environment that affect our life inside the school environment. Uh, so our first objective is to understand automatic thoughts and how to respond to them. So there's this idea of challenge that's a part of the growth mindset, which is really, really critical. If you're not challenging yourself, you're not really pushing the boundaries of what you can learn and what you can do. So accepting challenge and struggle is good, but there is a point where sometimes the struggle is too much. And if we don't manage it, if we don't recognize it, it can actually hurt our neuroplasticity. We all know those times where we felt overwhelmed or like we're just not getting it. And those kind of stresses start to build up. And they actually damage our brain's ability to form new neurological connections when we're feeling those stress. But the nice thing is we can manage those. So I want you to think about during school, how much is too much challenge? How do you know when you're being challenged in the right amount versus challenged to a point where you're becoming overly stressed? And then what do you do when you get to that point? So the first thing I want to talk about is these ideas of some of the subconscious responses that we get when we start feeling overly challenged and overly stressed. And I've felt all of these. I'm sure you guys have all felt of these. These are those subconscious thoughts that just pop into our mind when it's just like, oh my goodness, things are going badly when I'm facing this challenge or this struggle. One response is a catastrophic response. It's just like, oh my God, my life is over. Like maybe you scored poorly on a quiz or you just got assigned a research paper and you're like, this is the worst. This is going to ruin everything to me. That's an automatic thought. You can't really control when it pops into your brain. It's just going to happen at some point over the year. The other type of automatic thought that comes up a lot with students is kind of overgeneralizing, where maybe you take one failure or one struggle and you start cascading it, waterfalling it into other things, other parts of your life. Like, oh man, I failed this assignment, so that means I'm going to fail the test, and I'm going to fail the class, and I'm going to have to fail high school, and so on. Or I said something stupid, and now this person's going to hate me, and I'm never going to be friends with them again, and it's going to cause all these other problems. When really you just need to focus on, okay, I screwed up once. How do I make it better? Not focus on all of these other things that might come from it, but certainly haven't started down that path yet. And the last one is self-doubt. A lot of people come at, especially English or math, thinking that like, I've never been good at math. I'm never going to get this, or I've never been a good reader. I'm not going to get this. That self-doubt just creeps up in us all from time to time. And we can figure out ways to conquer this. So the nice thing is that all of these automatic thoughts, which you don't have a whole ton of control over, but you can control your response to them. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the concept of Pavlovs dog. Pavlov was a psychologist, and he started to train his dogs to respond to the sound of a bell. So basically, he would feed his dogs, and then he would ring a bell at the same time. And he'd feed his dogs and ring a bell, and feed his dogs and ring a bell. So obviously, they'd get really, really excited and like start slobbering and go all crazy every time like you put food in front of them, like my dog does. But when we started pairing that with the ringing of a bell, the dogs started to associate, okay, the bell ringing with food time. Makes sense, right? That's just normal brain processing. And the concept that he came up with behind this is that you can train your brain when it sees one thing, you can associate it with another. So eventually he got it to where he could ring a bell and the dogs would go nuts because they thought it was dinner time. Of course they did. Um, and so whenever you start to experience those automatic thoughts, you have to start associating it with a positive experience. Like, yeah, things might be bad, things might be challenging and struggling right now, but if I start taking that challenge every time I start feeling self-doubt, or if I start overgeneralizing, if I can associate it with a positive um, idea or positive action, then I'm going to start to step those negative thoughts and automatic responses back so it doesn't go out of control. So there are 3 things that I'm going to suggest that you do um, in life and in this class when maybe you experience those negative automatic thoughts. So number 1 is going to be, okay, if you feel bad, if you feel overwhelmed, number 1, keep perspective. Like, especially in this class, as you guys are find out, I get to go over some of my policies today, is if you miss an assignment, it's not terrible. In my class, I have no penalty for late work. I would much rather have you do an assignment and do it well and show me that you have some evidence of learning, even if it's 2 days late or a week late. So there's no late work. I'm always going to accept everything for full credit up to a certain point in the semester, but we'll talk that because obviously the semester is going to end. So I can't take it the last week of school, but everything up until then, you're going to be fine. I still am going to have due dates in this class that to keep you kind of on track and keep you going, but know that everyone learns at a different pace, and if you need an extra day or 2, take it. Just make sure you're getting it done. And second thing is if you turn something in and it doesn't go well, or if you write a paper and it's not up to your quality or up to my quality, you can redo it. In fact, you have infinite redos until you get it. My main focus is that you learn these things, and no matter how many times it takes for you to try it. And so the flip side of that is, yes, you have infinite redos to do it, but I also have kind of infinite expectation that you are going to redo it. And I might reassign you something or tell you have to redo this again and again and again until you get it. But ultimately, we're working towards that goal of learning. And then the last point to keep perspective is that I'm always going to try to respect your time to work and study. We all need time to work and study, especially in this home environment. So no, I'm here to help you out, and no, I'm here to communicate with you when you do get to feel overwhelmed. Just talk to me, send me an email, chat with me, and we'll figure it out. So number 1 idea for managing automatic thoughts is keep perspective. Number 2 is you got to respond to those thoughts, those negative thoughts, in a positive manner. So every time you feel overwhelmed, every time you feel like stressed and frustrated, go back to that idea of a growth mindset, thinking like, yes, I can do this. It might be difficult now, but in an hour, in a day, in a week, I can get better at this. So one of the strategies that I have for this is if you think of yourself going through, or of a friend going through the same experience where they're really, really struggling with a class, what advice would you say to them? Would you tell them to find a partner to help study? Would you ask them to have like a sibling look over their work, or a parent, or even get in touch with the teacher, or share notes, something like that? There are positive things you can do to respond to an automatic thought instead of just letting it overwhelm you. And the last one, this is kind of the toughest one, back to that Pavlovs dog analogy, is that you have to replace those automatic thoughts over time with something that's rational, right? Automatic thoughts may not be rational. Oh my God, I failed this test. My life is over. It's not. It's not a rational thought. It's a natural thought. I think these things just happen in human beings. But we have to recognize that the world is perfect. I'm not perfect as a teacher. You're not perfect as a student. But we are working towards that goal, and the world's not going to end because of one thing we don't get. And so these are just ways that you can start to replace some of those negative things you're feeling. And none of these are going to automatically fix pain or anxiety or stress or depression, but these are like cognitive tools that you can use to help yourself get better in dealing with these things. And I think that that discussion and recognition of mental health in an educational environment is really important. Know that it will get better. It can get better with practice, so long as we're doing something positive to replace these. Okay, so to review, the 3 automatic responses are you can have a catastrophic response, you can overgeneralize things, and you can have some self doubt. But in order to kind of fight back against those, we're trying to keep perspective. Things aren't as bad as maybe they seem. We're going to try to respond in positive ways and start to replace those automatic thoughts and associate them with positive things that we can do. All right. So the last thing I'll kind of leave you with here is reflect on what can affect my learning. What types of like outside factors or internal factors can affect my learning and my neuroplasticity, my growth, and then what can I do about it? All right. Good luck, folks.